This is Brent Allan Winters, commonlawyer.com, www.commonlawyer.com.
Good morning. Welcome to In Church. A couple of the elders, Brent Allan Winters and myself, Dan, from Montana, are just chatting, and we're recording what we're talking about, and hope it's of some benefit. So go ahead, Brent. You were talking about a situation that's happened in your past.
Yeah. My ancient past before the flood of Noah. We're talking way long time ago. We're talking 40 years ago. 40? Oh, yeah, more than 40 years ago. Wow. 45 years ago. I was younger then, but I was a grown man, and I was in a very, very large church. I mean, I think we had 6,000 or 7,000 people on a Sunday morning, Dan. 2 services, about 3,000 to 3,500 per service. And this particular church was in a populated area. I remember one time I calculated, Dan, I went to a little country church growing up, and I calculated, given the population of the county where I grew up, and we if we had 100 people at church, that was a massive crowd. And that did happen, revival meetings and stuff once in a while. But the ratio between the population where I grew up and the church where I grew up, there were more people in church per capita where I grew up with less than 100 people than there were in this great big church of 6,000 or 7,000 on a Sunday morning per capita. In other words, we were reaching more of our community percentage-wise than this mega church was. But that's just an observation. We see a big mega church and we think, oh, wow, they're really doing something. No, they probably aren't, given the number of people that are around them. They're not doing as much as these small country churches used to do, to tell the truth. Well, at any rate, I was in this church because I was there. I've been there, and I was in school, in graduate school there. And I was at this church, and I wanted to do something worthwhile. Got to know a couple of people, a couple of men. They had 50 elders in this church, Dan, 50. And as far as I know, they still have 50 elders there. Well, I asked, is there something I can do to be helpful here? Well, yes, we want you to teach a class that talks about the fundamentals, and a lot of new people coming in, and they don't understand sick 'em from come here about the Bible. That's the way we'd say it at home. Squat from straight up. And we want you to teach this class that says, okay, there's 66 books in the Bible, let's memorize them. There are 10 commandments. This is what the Godhead is, with 3 persons, and this is the sweep and the flow of the Bible, the big picture. And it was a wonderful opportunity, and I love to do it, and to try to learn how to communicate to simplicity. I made friends in that class, and one fellow there was a Mexican fellow named Domingo. I called him Ming, and his wife, Irene, we called her Reenie, and he ended up being a rather well-known fella. He started out, and he grew up without going to school, didn't know how to read and write. He learned how to read and write, eventually adopted over 20 children legally, and homeschooled all of them. He used to say to me, old Ming would say, Brent, all a man needs, all a man and a woman needs to homeschool their children. Just make sure they need 2 dummies and a Bible, a mother and a father and a Bible. That's all they need. He did her too. Well, I met people there, enjoyed it, and the class was burgeoning. They couldn't find a place to put us in this large church, a room big enough. Of course, there were a lot of things happening, and all their space was used up, even though it was a large facility, a campus. And I taught that class. It was over, and then I was teaching the next class, and it was big too, and got done teaching class one time, and 2 females approached me after the class. It was a mother and a daughter, both of them married, both of them attractive gals. They said, can we talk to you just a minute? I said, sure. My wife, Susan, was there. We'd been married at that time about 3 or 4 years. These ladies approached me, asked me if they could have a word, and I said, well, sure. What's up? And they said, well, we've got a major problem. in our family. And I said, well, what's the problem? Well, both of us are married, my daughter and I, and my husband, uh, my daughter's father, and my daughter's husband don't want us to go to church here. I said, okay. So I said, what are you doing here? Well, we've decided that it's more important that we go to church here than it is to be at home with them. And I said, okay, that's your conclusion? Yeah. And we want to know what you think about that. And I said, well, from a biblical point of view, it seems rather simple. The Bible says you are to arrange yourself under your husband. That's really the more accurate way to put it. The King James says submit. If you understand the etymology of the word submit, it's good, but people don't understand that word right, and it gives the wrong impression. Submit, sub means under, and mit is short for the word mission. Mission. The mission of the wife is in support of the bigger mission of the husband. That's the way the Bible describes the relationship between the man and the woman. She does things, she has a mission, and her mission is to, as it says in Genesis, to help her husband. How does she do that? By completing her mission, which is hers, her jurisdiction, to support her husband. And she has, to put it in concrete terms, we used to say about my grandmother, you don't touch anything in her kitchen. That's her kitchen. That's her jurisdiction. Yeah, you don't mess with stuff in there. You don't move things around. And when she's cooking, you don't come in and try to piecemeal what she's cooking until it's ready. And she wouldn't let you do that. You get popped in the mouth. And rightly so. It's a woman's jurisdiction to do a lot of things, not a man, but it's in support of the man's jurisdiction, which is the covenant of God, the trust settlement of God. And I thought about it a minute, and I said, well, it seems to me that your husband, the Bible says, will be won, if you don't think he's won, to Jesus Christ, and that will not be won by you disobeying him, flaunting rebellion. It will be won by you supporting him in what he does, by your chaste behavior, by your innocent behavior. Now, I would think it'd be a dangerous thing for me to tell you to disobey your husband. I'm not your husband. I'm just a guy down at church. And I'm not going to tell any woman to disobey her husband in something that is not unlawful. It's not unlawful for your husband to say, I want you to be home with me. And I don't want any woman, any wife running back to her husband to say, well, that guy down at church said to do what he says and not what you said. Not only does the Bible not support that point of view, the Bible doesn't support it, but men have been killed doing things like that. By stepping outside their jurisdiction and telling another woman to disobey their husband. The Bible says, these are the things we talked about with these two ladies. The Bible says that wives, arrange yourself under, and this is the Greek text, your idios, that's the Greek word, husbands. That word idios is translated rightly, your own husbands. The Bible does not tell a woman to arrange herself under any other man, ever. We see that all over now. Women arranging themselves under other men. The Bible doesn't say to do that or even allow it. By the way, it doesn't work well. But I'd say that half or more women in America that are married are doing that all day, every day at work. It does cause problems. Don't tell me it doesn't. I've watched marriages break up all my life because of that, in that system. Wives, arrange yourself under. Arrange yourself under what? Your mission. Your mission is in support of your husband's overarching mission. That's the way God has arranged marriage. That's what the Bible says. There's no question about that. Montana Dan, were you going to make a comment?
No, it's very interesting. So please
Well,
continue.
as I continue to say, Montana Dan, I'm not here to say what I think, and I'm not here to say what people want to hear as much as I just spend all of my time for over 4 decades now studying the Bible. And I pride myself that I have a duty to tell you what it says. And I'm telling you what it says as best I understand it. I'm giving you my testimony. That's all I'm doing. I'm not trying to force anybody to believe it. Why? I can't do that anyway. I can't do that anyway, but I am under a bounden duty to say what it says, and that's what I'm trying to do as God shows me light. At any rate, I said that to these ladies, and they just kind of went quiet and hung their heads and shook their heads like this and walked out, and I never saw them again. But I was axed, Dan. I mean, axed in the middle of that class, and I was dismissed, and I was never allowed to have a position of authority or teaching ever again.
Wow.
I had to stay there for another 3 or 4 years to finish school, and I was deeply disappointed because I enjoyed it very much, and I think other people did too. Um, what did surprise me about it was, among other things, that instead of coming to me and saying what happened here and what, I was just left in the dark and I was dismissed and they got rid of me. The only thing I can figure is that they figure it's more important that they grow their numbers than it is that somebody just teach what the Bible says. You say, well, I don't agree with you, Brent. I don't believe that's what the Bible says. Well, that's okay. It's your duty to go to the Bible and figure out what it says. It's my duty to go to the Bible and figure out what it says and to say it as it is yours. But don't complain about me doing my best to be honest with it and trying to do my duty. I'm no sense in it. I'm not going to change it. Not going to change me any more than I could change you. I can't change you. I don't have that power. I'm not God the Spirit. I don't change people's hearts and minds. I sow seed. That's all I'm doing. But I'm making a point. This church has always been known for decades as the center of Bible exposition in America. But of course, there are mere mortals and sinners running things around there like every place else. So I'm not complaining about it. It's just an experience I had. I'm giving you my personal testimony about what happened. Montana Dan, I'm waiting for you to say something. By the way, Montana Dan, we were talking this morning. Montana Dan is not prone to talk as much as me. And I think that's a wise way to be. I'm prone to talk for whatever reason, so I do. But I want Montana Dan here so you all understand and know that I'm not by myself out here entirely. And if he thinks I'm dead wrong about something, I like to have him around just so there's a little bit of accountability. And he is the other elder at In Church for that reason. That's why we're together here. But Montana Dan, maybe he has a comment he wants to make, and when he does, I want him to do it.
Well, I'm not sure that's an honor I'm deserving of, but I'm privileged to be able to spend time with you, Brent.
Well, appreciate
it seems like in church, maybe things, and we've talked about this before too. Church starts out with pretty good ideas, and I think it's just the influence of our evil world and our depraved nature of man that things just start going downhill. And so when we talked about this too, we got to start new things to keep refreshed. In my point of view, anyway, that's simple words. Just got to start over and get a fresh start. So thank you, Brent.
we need to keep renewing things. Agree to chorus. Well, thank you, Montana Dan. This is Brent Allan Winters, and this is the couple of elders at In Church kicking things around a little. We hope this has been useful for you.